Welcome back to the Nepali Diaspora Network podcast. It is Friday, February 20th, 2026, and I have to be honest with you, looking at the news coming out of the community this week, I am feeling a serious case of emotional whiplash.
Yeah, whiplash is probably the only word for it, honestly. It has been a week of extreme volatility.
Right, because on one side we have this absolute euphoria. The cricket team in Mumbai breaking a 12-year curse. It felt like a movie script.
Oh, absolutely.
But then you flip the page, and the news for the diaspora in the U.S. and Europe is, well, it's heavy. It's genuinely scary stuff.
It's a week of extremes. You have the highest highs on the pitch and then deep existential anxiety in the courts. And frankly, a lot of confusion in between.
Yeah. And looming over all of this, we are less than 2 weeks away from March 5th. The election that everyone is saying could change everything.
Right, it's the post-uprising election. The stakes haven't been this high in decades.
So our mission for this deep dive today isn't just to list these headlines. We need to sift through the latest Nepali Diaspora Digest and connect the dots for you. Because I want to understand how a court ruling in San Francisco, a forged stamp in Lisbon, and a cricket match in Mumbai are actually part of the same story. Right now, they feel like totally different worlds.
They do seem disconnected, but they aren't. I mean, they are all chapters in the story of a community fighting for its place in the world. I kind of call it the friction of belonging.
The friction of belonging. I like that.
Yeah, whether it's legal status, voting rights, or respect on the sports field, it's all about fighting for space.
Okay, let's start with the hard stuff then. The friction that is actually burning people right now. We have been tracking the TPS, the Temporary Protected Status situation in the U.S., for what feels like forever.
It really does.
It's been a lifeline since the 2015 earthquake. What is the actual update this week?
It is the update nobody wanted, honestly. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of the Trump administration.
Okay, strip away the legalese for me. I'm not a lawyer. What does that actually mean for the listener driving to work in New York or Texas right now?
Effectively, it gives the administration the green light to terminate TPS for Nepalese nationals.
Wow.
Yeah. For a long time, there was an injunction. Think of it as a legal shield or a pause button that prevented the government from ending the program. This ruling overturns that injunction.
So the shield is just gone.
The shield is cracked and likely shattering. We are talking about over 7,000 Nepalese nationals here.
That is a massive number of people.
It is. And it's important to remember these aren't recent arrivals. These are people who have been in the U.S. legally for over a decade.
Right.
They have built businesses, they have mortgages, they have U.S.-born children who are American citizens.
That's the part that really gets me. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about uprooting entire lives.
Yeah.
But hasn't the atmosphere been getting tighter anyway?
Yeah.
I feel like I've been seeing more deportation stories even before this ruling came down.
You're completely right. It didn't happen in a vacuum. The machinery was already revving up. If you look at the data from 2025, there were 553 deportations.
That's huge.
That was a massive spike compared to previous years. And just earlier this month, there was a planned charter deportation flight carrying 121 nationals.
A charter flight, like specifically for deportation.
Yes, exactly. That signals a major shift from individual commercial flights to mass removal operations.
Right, so the infrastructure is already there.
The anxiety was already there. Now with this court ruling, you have thousands of families staring at an impossible timeline.
What does that timeline look like?
Well, if the administration moves to formally rescind the status, there is usually a wind-down period, maybe 6 to 12 months, but the end result is the loss of work authorization.
And the risk of being sent back.
The very real risk of being sent back to a country many haven't lived in for 10 years.
It really highlights just how precarious the diaspora dream can be. You can do everything right, pay your taxes, follow the rules, and one gavel bang changes everything.
That precarity is definitely the defining theme this week. Because if you look across the Atlantic to Europe, specifically Portugal, we're seeing a different version of that exact same vulnerability.
The Portugal situation? I saw the headlines about this, and it sounded chaotic. Something about fake stamps.
Yeah.
But usually when I hear about fake documents, I think of people actively trying to cheat the system. Is that what happened here?
That's the tragic part. No, these weren't people trying to be criminals. They were trying to follow the rules.
Okay.
Between 12,250 and 2,000, Nepalese workers in Portugal are facing potential deportation and criminal charges for document fraud simply because they tried to get their papers in order.
Walk me through that. How do you get charged with fraud for trying to follow the rules?
So to regularize your immigration status in Portugal, you need a police clearance certificate from Nepal. Simple enough, right?
Some standard.
But,
Yeah.
and here's the massive failure point, for a critical 10-month period, legitimate consular services from Nepal were effectively unavailable in Portugal.
So the government just wasn't there to help them.
Correct. There was a diplomatic vacuum. And as always happens in these migration corridors, when the state is absent, predatory middlemen step in.
The agents.
Exactly. These agents said, don't worry, we can get your documents authenticated, and they charged workers 150 to 200 euros for the service.
And I'm guessing the stamps they provided were fake?
Completely forged. So now the Portuguese authorities are looking at these documents, and they see fraud. They don't see a victim, they see a criminal.
That is just...
The workers who paid good money thinking they were following the law are the ones holding the bag.
That is infuriating. You have people just trying to work getting squeezed by scammers because their own government wasn't present to do basic consular work.
And here is the Portugal paradox, the bitter irony I mentioned earlier. On February 20th, the exact same day this crisis hit the news, Nepal formally inaugurated its embassy chancery in Lisbon.
You're kidding me. The exact same day.
I wish I was. You had Foreign Secretary Amrit Bahadur Rai and Portugal's Secretary of State Ana Isabel Xavier cutting the ribbon, smiling, celebrating diplomatic ties.
Wow.
It is a huge step forward, legally speaking, to finally have that embassy. But for the 2,000 people caught in the fraud trap, it is the definition of too little too late.
It's almost like a split-screen reality. On one side, you have dignitaries drinking champagne, and on the other, workers facing criminal charges because that building wasn't open 6 months ago.
It perfectly illustrates the lag between where the people go and where the government's support infrastructure actually exists. The diaspora moves fast, but the state moves slowly.
And in that gap, people get hurt.
Exactly.
Speaking of people getting hurt in that gap, I have to bring up the tragedy in Meghalaya, India. I know it's not the U.S. or Europe, but it feels deeply connected to this.
It is absolutely connected. It's the extreme end of the same spectrum. 9 Nepalese workers were killed in a coal mine explosion there this week.
And this wasn't a standard mine. The digest mentioned rat holes.
Yes, rat hole mining. It's exactly what it sounds like. These are illegal, incredibly narrow, dangerous shafts.
This is crawling into the earth.
Yeah, they were actually banned by India's environmental court years ago because they are literal death traps. But people still work in them.
Because they need the money.
Exactly. Whether it's a courtroom in San Francisco, a scam in Lisbon, or a rat hole mine in India, the underlying driver is the same.
The search for opportunity.
The desperate search for economic opportunity and the immense risks people take to find it.
That is a really heavy but necessary context.
Yeah.
It really sets the stage for why this upcoming election back home matters so much.
It does.
Because if the diaspora is facing these kinds of systemic threats globally, the leadership in Kathmandu needs to have their backs.
Or at least understand their reality. Which brings us to March 5th.
The big day. We are less than 2 weeks out. There are 165 constituencies, but let's be real. There is only one race that everyone is talking about. My WhatsApp groups are completely obsessed with it. Jhapa 5.
Oh, it is the blockbuster event. The rumble in the jungle of Nepali politics. You couldn't script a better contrast if you tried.
Set the scene for us. Who are the heavyweights here?
In one corner, you have the ultimate insider, KP Sharma Oli.
Right.
73 years old, former prime minister, the chairman of the UML. He has held this specific seat since 1991. He is the old guard personified.
And in the other corner?
The disruptor, Balen Shah, 35 years old, structural engineer, rapper.
A completely different background.
And the man who shook the system as mayor of Kathmandu.
But wait, I have to ask why. He was incredibly popular in Kathmandu. Why resign? Why go all the way to Jhapa to fight Oli on his home turf? It seems suicidal politically speaking.
It does seem that way, but it's not about safety. It's about symbolism.
Okay.
It's audacious by design. By going to Jhapa, Balen is sending a clear message. He's saying, I am not just here to fix potholes in Kathmandu. I am here to dismantle the old establishment entirely.
That's a huge statement.
It's being called the post-uprising election because it represents a genuine generational clash. It's Gen Z and the millennials versus the leaders who have run things for 30 years.
And the diaspora is clearly picking a side, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is the first election where the digital diaspora is acting as a primary campaign engine.
Right.
You have people in the UK, the US, Dubai calling their parents and grandparents in Jhapa.
The classic guilt trip. Mom, I know you love the sun symbol, but you have to vote for the bell.
Basically, yes. It's a proxy war fought via FaceTime.
That's so true.
And this is the frustration I hear constantly, those people making the calls, the ones funding the economy, they can't actually vote.
The disenfranchisement. We talk about this every election cycle, but it feels sharper this time around.
It stings a lot more this time. There are 18.9 million registered voters in Nepal, but millions of migrant workers, the very people sending home the $7.5 billion that keeps the lights on, are excluded because there is no absentee voting system?
I read a quote in the Nepali Times from a worker heading to Dubai that just broke me. He said, "A foreign country called me. Nepal told me to leave and not be around on election day."
That sentiment is so pervasive. You are hailed as an economic hero, but you remain a political ghost.
Yeah.
However, looking at the political manifestos released this week, that pressure might finally be cracking the wall.
Really? In what way?
Specifically, look at the Rastriya Swatantra Party, the RSP.
What are they promising that's different?
They have explicitly put dual citizenship for NRN's non-resident Nepalese in their manifesto.
Wait, hold on. Actual citizenship, not just that ID card we have right now.
Correct. The current NRN card is, well, it's better than nothing, but it's limited.
Yeah, it doesn't give you full rights.
Full dual citizenship would mean property rights, investment freedom, and eventually the holy grail, which is voting rights without having to give up your foreign passport.
That would be a complete game changer. That changes the incentive structure completely for someone living in London or Sydney.
It would connect the diaspora to the state in a legal way, not just an emotional one.
Right.
But just to show you how fractured the political landscape is right now, while the RSP is looking forward, we have another faction looking very far back.
You mean the monarchy news from the Digest?
Yes. Former King Gyanendra returned to Kathmandu this week to a massive rally at the airport.
A massive rally.
He defied prohibitory orders to do it. The RPP is campaigning actively on restoring the king. Gyanendra even issued a statement calling for the election to be postponed.
So we have a rapper engineer pulling us into the future and a former king trying to pull us back to the past.
Exactly.
It is just a chaotic, vibrant, messy democratic moment.
It is, but democracy needs money to function, and that brings us to the economy.
Right.
Because if you look at the numbers this week, it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
Because I saw the headlines, Forex reserves are at a record high, $22.47 billion. That sounds amazing.
It is amazing on paper. Remittances are up 39%, hitting $7.5 billion in just 6 months. The country is literally flush with cash from abroad.
So what's the problem? Why does it feel like the economy is struggling when I talk to people back home?
Because the money is stuck. The domestic economy is grinding to a halt. Growth is projected at just 3 to 3.5% by the IMF.
That's really low.
Private sector credit is weak. Basically, the diaspora is sending money, but it's sitting in banks rather than fueling new businesses on the ground.
So people are saving, not investing, because they're scared.
Because they don't see the opportunities, or the regulatory friction is just too high to start something new.
That makes sense.
However, there was one massive piece of infrastructure news this week that actually looks like a breakthrough.
The Dudkoshi deal.
Yes.
This is the hydro project. $2.32 billion. That is a massive number for Nepal.
It's huge. It involves 6 global lenders: the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It's a consortium of the heavy hitters.
Now, I keep seeing the word storage highlighted in these reports. Dudkoshi Storage Hydroelectric Project. Is that just technical jargon, or does it actually matter?
It matters immensely. Think of it like a battery.
Okay.
Most of Nepal's hydro is run of the river.
Yeah.
That means you generate power based on how fast the river is flowing at that exact moment.
So in the monsoon, when there's lots of water.
Great, you have plenty of power. In the winter, the river dries up and power generation crashes.
That's why we still have to import power from India in the dry season.
Exactly. It brings back all the load-shedding memories.
Oh, don't remind me.
A storage project fixes that. It builds a massive dam. This one will be 220 meters high.
Wow.
That's taller than the second observation deck of the Eiffel Tower.
That is massive.
It creates a giant reservoir. That reservoir is your water battery. You hold the water and you release it to generate power whenever you need it year-round. It solves the seasonality problem completely.
Okay, that makes total sense. A water battery. So that's the macro save the grid stuff. But what about the micro stuff? Yeah. For the listener in Silicon Valley who wants to start a company in Kathmandu, was there anything for them in the digest this week?
Yes, and this is actually highly actionable. The government just removed the 500 million rupee cap on the automatic route for foreign direct investment, or FDI.
Break that down for us. What is the automatic route?
Previously, if you wanted to invest big money into Nepal, you had to go through a long, painful government approval process.
Red tape.
Waiting for cabinet decisions, endless paperwork.
Yeah.
Now, specifically for sectors like IT and tech, you can invest unlimited amounts via a streamlined digital process.
Wait, no cabinet approval needed.
No cabinet approval. It cuts out the bureaucracy entirely.
That's fantastic.
So if you are a Nepalese tech entrepreneur in California, the door to opening a subsidiary in Kathmandu just got a lot less squeaky. It removes that regulatory friction.
That is exactly the kind of boring but essential regulatory change we love to see in this deep dive, just removing the red tape. Okay, we have done the heavy legal stuff, the chaotic politics, the money. Now I need to talk about the joy.
Yes, please.
Because February 17th, 2026 is a date that is going to be etched in history.
A cricket redemption.
Oh man, the energy. I was glued to my screen. Nepal versus Scotland. T20 World Cup. Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai.
To really understand the joy, though, you have to appreciate the pain that came right before it.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't just a win, it was an exorcism of a 12-year curse.
It really was. I mean, first we lose to England, the Giants, by just 4 runs on the very last ball. That was pure heartbreak.
Devastating.
Then we lose to Italy, which was absolute shock. People were devastated. The timeline online was incredibly dark.
And then comes the Scotland match. Chasing 171.
Which is not an easy target.
Not at all. And Dipendra Singh, the man, went supernova.
Unbelievable performance.
An unbeaten 50 off just 23 balls.
6 sixes. He didn't just win the game. He finished it with a swagger that we just haven't seen before.
No, we haven't.
It ended that 12-year drought for a World Cup win in such spectacular fashion.
But here is what I found most interesting about the aftermath. It wasn't just us celebrating. Did you see what our Ashwin, the Indian cricket legend, said?
I missed that. What did he say?
He was commentating, and he publicly said Nepal deserves bilateral series against test nations.
Wow, that's a huge endorsement.
He basically said these guys aren't cute underdogs anymore, they are real contenders.
That is huge.
It is validation from the highest level. It changes the narrative from we're happy to be here to we belong here.
And that sense of belonging, it actually ties into the other major cultural event this week. The spiritual connection.
Mahashivaratri.
Yes, on February 15th. The images coming out of Pashupatinath were just incredible.
They really were.
Over 1 million devotees.
Yeah.
4,000 sadhus. It looked so visceral and alive.
And for the diaspora, I think Shivaratri hits a very specific note of nostalgia.
How so?
Well, you might be in a cold apartment in London or Toronto. You are far away from the chaos and the color of Kathmandu. But seeing those live streams of the lamps and the crowds at Pashupati, it grounds you.
It's a tether to your roots.
It is. Whether you are fasting, doing a small puja at home, or just watching the rituals on YouTube, it reminds you of exactly where you come from.
That's beautifully put. So if we look at the week as a whole, it's a lot to process.
It really is.
We have the intense anxiety of the TPS ruling and the Portugal crisis where people are literally fighting just to stay where they are.
Right.
We have the hope and tension of the election where people are fighting to change where they came from, and then the pure release of the cricket win.
It is the full spectrum of the immigrant experience in 1 week. Resilience is the word that just keeps coming to mind for me.
Resilience and evolution. The community is facing totally new challenges, but is also finding its voice on a global stage, whether that is cheering in a stadium in Mumbai or demanding voting rights in Kathmandu.
And putting their money into hydro dams. It's all part of the same maturation process for the diaspora.
Well said. Before we wrap up this deep dive, we want to give a quick nod to a resource that is actively helping part of our community thrive. If you are part of the UK Nepalese community, you really should check out Balen.uk.
Yes, it's a fantastic platform.
And it's not just a classified site, it's a real community hub.
Exactly. You can find jobs, housing, local events. But most importantly, it helps you support local Nepalese-owned businesses in the UK.
Which is so important right now.
It's a great way to keep that economic energy circulating within the community.
Absolutely. So go check out Belayit.uk. And as always, we have only scratched the surface here. If you want to read the full stories, see the actual data on the hydro deal, because I know some of you really want to see those charts. Or read the full legal analysis of TPS ruling. Go to nepalidiaspora.net.
That is where you can find the full newsletter and links to every single source we discussed today.
And here's a final provocative thought to leave you with as we sign off. We talked about the diaspora influencing the election through phone calls to their parents in Jhapa. But imagine a future where that influence isn't just a guilt-trip phone call, but an actual ballot cast from an embassy in New York or Lisbon.
That changes everything.
With the manifestos we are seeing this week from parties like the RSP, that future might be much closer than we think. How would that change the very definition of what it means to be Nepalese?
Profound question.
Something for you to chew on this weekend. That's it for this week's Deep Dive. Namaste, and see you next week.